Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Elmont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your one and only weekly Warmahordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the death clock starts now.
And welcome to This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your War Machine news source, if I might call it that.
One of them. I'm sure.
Yes, hopefully not your only one, because if we're your only news source, something has gone horribly wrong. So I would like to introduce to you today the people that I have with me. So, of course, I am your host for tonight, Semi-Auto Magic. Normally, there would be a tiny fisherman sitting in this chair.
Yeah.
But he is away doing whatever tiny fishermen do. I assume he's stuck in a tiny little kayak somewhere or something. To my right here, we have Maelstrom.
Yep. I'm still here.
You're still here. No matter what else is happening,
right.
You're still here,
That's
except
right.
when you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
And we are lucky enough to have a last-minute guest.
We do have a last-minute
we
guest.
were
A very
able
esteemed
to
last-minute guest.
a very esteemed, of course. We were able to push past his security guards.
Yeah.
Because the El Presidente for life of War Machine, Menoth John, is joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Hear ye, hear ye. As president of War Machine and Hordes, I would like to appreciate all of the thanks that you all have for releasing this newest version of the game. I know that last week the Death Clock was visiting all of the changes, at least the first half of the changes that I implemented. And I think you will see as you go through your games that I am the best president of War Machine and Hordes that you could ever hope for. Keep that in mind.
Well, I cannot argue with any of the wonderful changes that I have seen so far.
I can't either.
Now, there are a lot of people on the forums who are arguing with the changes as hard and as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And I think today what we're going to do is, before we get into the second half of the massive amount of changes from Mark II to Mark III,
Right.
we're going to go over a few of the little things that we have seen from the forums.
Yes.
So, the first one that I saw was an interesting interaction between backstrike and trampling. Mm-hmm. So, as we all know, trampling is one of the power attacks. We've gone over this in previous casts. And trample allows you to move through some small-based models, stomp all up and down on them, and land somewhere else. Yep. This is especially great if there's some small troops in your way trying to stop your Jack or your gigantic Colossal or something from doing its job, which is bringing the death and destruction to the other guy. And they get in the way, you can just trample over them without having to try and stop.
Right.
So, previously, you'd get to the other end, and because you didn't start in their back arcs,
you don't get the bonus.
You don't get any bonuses.
Yeah.
But backstrike has changed to now, as long as the source of damage is in the back arc, the damage gets a +2 to hit.
Yep.
So this has basically given us a interaction where you trample over all the models.
Yeah.
And anything without a shield wall, who still gets a shield wall because you're impacting them in the front.
Yes.
But anything else, everything gets a +2 to hit.
Okay.
So because you're in the back arc, when you make those damage rolls, you're getting that +2.
I suspect we're going to see a lot more trampling going on.
I would hope so. Tramples and throws.
Yeah.
Because throws no longer have the deviation problem.
Right. Yeah.
You can
Which
put
was
your
half
model,
of the complication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just put your model wherever you want and throw and knock down as long as you're at half strength away.
Yeah.
So, John, what do you think we're going to see doing the most trampling now that we know they're going to be able to hit things?
Well, I think that, I wish I was going to say huge base models. Because
Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Elmont, Ontario.
I really think that you're going to see a lot of tramples from maybe, those Khador Warjacks who used to have bad cortexes, but not so much anymore. But literally anything that's got maybe some challenges on its mat is now going to have that +2 and some things that you may not have otherwise considered trampling. Maybe before you didn't want to go trampling over a Nis, or you didn't want to go trampling over a Kayazi. This is maybe an opportunity to go after some of that higher defense stuff and get it that way.
Yeah, the stuff that has a normal mat of 5 or 6 is suddenly actually hitting stuff.
Yeah.
I know, like those poor protectorate jacks that have such shitty mat now because Privateer hates us.
Oh yes, the poor put upon Menoth.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just another example of Privateer keeping a religion down.
Yes, they. We all know that
working at Privateer.
Well,
Press.
we all know that the one true Dunian faith is what is constantly represented at Privateer Press. Yes. So all the other faiths have to take a back seat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some of these words are not accurate.
All right, so the next interesting interaction we've seen, and John, you said this came up at your game store, an interaction between Ruin and Souls.
Sure. I mean, the big question that we had was in that turn, when Ruin collects a whole bunch of souls, he can hold 5 of them. What happens when those are starting to convert into focus? And we had heard that no jack can have more than 3 unless it has some kind of special rule on it that says it can go to more than the avatar, for instance. In the case of Ruin, do all 5 souls convert at once, or what's the deal? And we found out through the forums, probably the most useful thing the forums have ever done for us, is tell us that no, he can convert 3 of them. 2 more souls are hanging around doing the thing, but you're only going to get the 3 focus out of it.
Yeah, it's one of the nice things that they seem to be making really tough decisions about when things can go over that 3 focus limit. Because they've done so much wonderful buffing to our jacks, they got to be careful about handing out too much extra oomph on there.
Yep. It's the Warjacks. If for those of you who have not had an opportunity to play in Mark III, Warjacks finally play like we wish they had. And the power-up mechanic is just brilliant. So allowing things to routinely get up above 3 focus is probably tipping the scales a little too hard towards the direction of War Machine, which I never thought I would actually say.
It really seems like they are making it really easy to get that 1, 2, sometimes even 3 focus on a jack just almost all the time without even really trying. But they're capping it off at that 3 so that they're kind of drawing a line in the sand, saying this is the power level.
Right. I mean, if you take an Amon list, for instance, I played an Amon list at Lock and Load that manufactured, God, I don't even know how many focus he had on the table, but he had a very jack-heavy list, and they were all sitting at 3 focus by the time he got done with Amon's feat. So, guys, focus is like candy in this new edition. And it's everybody's getting some. The
standard Signar Battlebox caster now. You give her a Stormclad. She's a sword knight or a Storm Knight, so he gets 1 free from that and 1 free from power up. I mean, she throws him a bone of a 3rd focus, and he just goes and wrecks a Colossal or something.
As the president of War Machine Hordes, expect a nerf. Can't have Signar having fun. That doesn't work.
Exactly. We wouldn't want too much of that.
Yeah.
So one last interaction that I'll point out. This wasn't specifically something that we have seen like an errata or anything on, but just something that we'll talk about in just a second when we go on to the first of the new Mark III changes, is that Grievous Wounds has gotten a lot better.
This is crazy talk.
Yeah, Grievous Wounds before just stopped healing, but because as we'll move in here to model damage and destruction, one of the first things we have here is that healing is no longer distinct from other means of having damage removed. The term has been removed from the game. So healing is gone. So that means all things that remove damage are all as one. So now somebody like Alton Ashley can do a Grievous Wounds shot and just stop certain things from happening. You can stop a feat like Darius's, where it completely heals up a storm wall. You get that storm wall down under half, pop it, and now you're safe from it getting completely refilled. Those mechanics are grouping up around Behind of Ruin, pop them, you don't have that problem anymore.
Such a big deal. Such a big deal.
I think anybody with grievous wounds that before you were sort of just eyeing up them as a hordes drop, now just sort of gets subbed in to just about anything.
No, absolutely. Grievous wounds, and you look at Gareth for Retribution. He just keeps on getting better. Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy talk how good he's gotten, and this type of a ruling where you can shut off that healing mechanic again on both living and constructs. It's a big deal.
Yeah, a lot of convergence, cricks, all of us who were sort of just ignoring all of that. Suddenly we have to worry about it because that auto repair is exactly the same as any other heal now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's good. I think it's a good ruling.
I think so too, and I think it really simplifies stuff because one of the things that I always had to explain as a PG is, well, I can't heal this. Why can I heal that?
Right.
Why does he get to just heal his beasts and my repair guys can't heal my Warcaster,
And it increases the lethality of the game, and that is something that is a theme throughout all of Mark III.
Yeah, one of the interesting things from the video game world is a thing called time to kill. And it's something you see in first-person shooters where to speed up a game, to make it more active, you'll lower the average time to kill for any two players. And I think one of the great things Mark III has done has been lowering that time to kill, making it more active. You're getting more damage and more killing.
Brad McLeod in the chat room disagrees with our love of the backstrike bonus.
Brad,
Sorry,
Brad. Jesus Christ, Brad.
Come on. All right, so
Yeah,
what we're going to do is we're going to swoop right into the second half of all these changes. As before, we'd like to thank the guys on the forums who prepared this list for us. It's absolutely a great list. If you go back to last week's podcast, you can hear the first part. We're going to jump right into the model damage and destruction. The first thing we already went over was healing. The next one is corpse tokens. So undead models generate corpse tokens, but not soul tokens by default. Now, This is a little bit different than it used to be, John.
Yeah, I think you used to be able to double dip on that, didn't you?
Absolutely.
Suck tricks.
Yeah, it used to be that that every model generated every token of every type, and it was up to whoever was grabbing it to be the selector. Now you don't get that. Your undead models just generate corpse tokens by default now.
That's right. It's gone the way of the delicious fruit token from Mark 1 has this type of a rule gone.
All right, so we're going to move on to miscellaneous effects. Now, what they call miscellaneous effects, we might call status effects. Things like knockdown, stationary are in here, but so are things like falling and cloud effects. So the first one, I'll get this happy little nugget right away off the top. Command tests, fleeing, rallying, all these mechanics are gone from the game.
Yay!
No more psychology. As much as I love the fluffiness of psychology, God, I really hated 2 Doom Reavers running in and just my entire army leaving.
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, this has been a continuing sort of curve of them taking that kind of stuff out of the game. God, in Mark 1, your stuff used to run off the table literally, and that's no bueno. And with the Doom Reavers the way that they were, that was you could, and then you'd paint. People would paint their Doom Reavers all the same color. You had no idea who was command checking you or not. This just kind of removes it from the game, makes it easier, and it keeps the stuff that you brought to the table you get to play with, which is a play experience thing that they've tried to get after.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and I really love the idea of my repair guys not just completely failing to figure out which end of the jack was up when they wandered in behind it.
Exactly.
So other things, cloud effects have been brought into line with all the other terrain. So a model must be completely within a cloud effect to gain concealment from it. Good bringing it in line thing, and as we discussed last week, we tended to all hail the praises of not towing in anymore.
Yeah.
Yep, that was dumb.
Falling. Something that I feel does not come up enough, because our terrain tends to be boring. And I'm hoping Mark III will be the time of new and more interesting terrain. Falling model now take damage equal to 2d6 plus 12 plus 1d6 per 2 inches fallen after the first rounded up. So, what I will just let people know is the big difference is it's a POW 12 instead of a POW 10. So when you fall off of a hill or any other high object like a house or something, after the first inch, and for every 2 inches you're taking a POW 12, and you get an extra d6 per inch you fall. So
I would. It would be nice to see tables that would take advantage of this. I think that this is a rule that probably has more of its place in fluffy, fun kind of pickup type games where you decide to run some kind of a special table or something like that.
Yeah.
This rule will probably never find its way into competitive play, which is a shame, because slamming something off of a hill and then watching it fall would be hilarious. But I hope that we start to see more cinematic play, and that's one thing we could learn as a community from the GW community is that kind of cinematic play.
yeah, one of the nice things about War Machine is even though its rules system is so tight, you can still easily do cinematic play with it. And
sure.
I think you're right. I think we really need to. In fact, I would hope that in some of the new scenarios in the League games, we start to see more lopsided scenarios, for want of a better word. Like, right. You have more defenders than attackers, but the defenders have no terrain and the attackers get 4 walls or something that they get to place. Stuff like that.
Those are the tables I tend to gravitate towards when I'm playing in Iron Arena, because it's not just, a small... It's not like a one-round steamroller. It takes some creativity, and it takes a little bit of... It really kind of buffs up the story that you almost kind of role play it a little bit.
Yeah, it will. I think it really adds to the story. So 2 more we've got to deal with: knockdown and stationary. Big difference to knockdown. You can now slam a knockdown model.
That makes it kind of fun. You auto hit on the slam. That works for me.
They are. This falls in line with the power attacks are now more fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that being able to have that that boomy tuft, well, maybe he just needs to go flying over your caster.
Absolutely.
And stationary. Stationary models cannot be used to channel spells. Also cannot advance, make special actions, make attacks, cast spells, use feats, or give orders. But it now does get to activate. This is the big difference. So previously, a stationary model was literally teleported out of the game, basically, for the time it was stationary. It did not get an action, so it meant it could stand in covering fire and care not, but it also meant that it couldn't do anything that you would normally do from giving up your movement and action. So it can do things like mini feats or any of the orders that are just or any of things that are just automatic. Any abilities. So that's a neat little change. So you don't have your UA get stationary and then the entire unit gets stuck.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, so we're going to move on to fun with Warcasters. Maelstrom, why don't you take a look at some of these and...
I would, except I just lost my list
I'll take this one, and then we'll come back. So Warcaster is some of the big differences we have here, and this is some things that I have noticed since playing some Mark III. I hauled out my Resnick on last Thursday, and oh god, is he a murder machine of fun now. Replenishing focus points. So models gain with the focus manipulation, remove the focus points in excess of their focus during the maintenance phase, but they get to keep it. So in other words, with the changes to how overboosting works on, and that's the next one, it gets, now that overboosting is gone and has this reinforcing thing, the focus points stick around, so you can use that focus to when you're on fire or whatever, you can spend a focus to get rid of that, to decrease that damage by 5. So I've kind of covered all 3 of these almost in one kind of discussion here. Remember, if everyone remembers how Warcasters used to be, if you had extra focus, they would simply add to your armor. That's gone. Now what you can do is you can spend a focus to decrease damage by 5 to a minimum of 5. So if you spend the focus, you don't get to heal. You just get to decrease the damage to a minimum of 0. And you can do that up to once per instance. So if you're camping 3, you get to do that 3 times. And that's a great big deal. In some cases, where you have a tankier caster, that's better than overboosting. In cases where you have a more fragile caster, let's say a Harbinger of Menoth, with the great set line of 14-14, it's a 14-19, which is still not high armor. Not of the like that you used to be able to camp up to 24 or something like that. So it's a great balancing. I think it's a great balancing mechanic between Hordes and War Machine. And in the case of, it encourages you to play slightly tankier casters. It allows you to take those mid-range casters and bring them into the mid-range or perhaps forward. It's a great change. What do you think, George?
I think it's a wonderful new mechanic. I think it brings a lot of parity into the game between Hordes and War Machine. One of the things that always kind of drove me nuts was the fact that my Warcaster with crappy stats was set on fire and was dead the next turn,
Yes,
and
sir.
I lit a Warlock on fire, and they just dumped the damage.
0 Fs given.
Yeah, exactly. And though it isn't dumping all of the damage, most of the time I found when I burned to death, it was by 2, 3, 4 points. It was seldom, I got 10 damage. You
Right.
know, it was usually just that last little nick that that broke the camel's back.
Yep, exactly. Maelstrom, any thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I think it's a great change too. No,
Cool.
no disagreements here for sure.
You want to take Warjacks then, Maelstrom?
If I ever get a War Machine faction, yeah.
Jesus Christ. Ball at you. He tosses the ball at you. You're worse than the Milwaukee Brewers. You
Yeah.
can't catch the ball.
Can't catch it. We're going to make you do Warlocks later. So I will take Warjacks because I may be the biggest fan in the world of Warjacks.
Yeah,
I
you take the
love them.
Warjacks.
So, of course, the big one that almost everybody I'm sure has heard of right now is Power Up. Power Up is amazing.
Yep, it is.
In your control area, at the beginning of the control phase, they just get a focus. Everybody gets a focus. You get a focus, and you get a focus. It's awesome for those of us who play gigantic battle groups and don't care. And now we can really, really not care.
Yeah.
The only way I could get away with it before was playing Convergence all the time. Now I get to actually play other factions. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is. It works better than I hoped it would, to be very honest with you. It got to the point where I played a mock Mark III game before it came out, and it killed my entire desire to play Mark II because the list just worked. Just getting that one focus made all the difference in the world. Brilliant move by Privateer.
Yeah, the one of the amazing things I think that this has done is that you no longer have that sort of sick feeling when you look across the table and it's all beasts. It's like, yeah, well, if they're all beasts, I'm all jacks. I can do that now. All right, so the next thing is focus cap. This is sort of a reinforcement of what it was before, but as we talked about right at the beginning, it looks like this is a hard cap now. Warjacks can never have more than 3 focus at any time.
Yep, unless it's got some silly rule like the avatars.
Yes.
But that goes for all of them.
Yeah, of course, this is maybe something that we should bring up right now because it has come up before. People don't seem to understand what I would take as a relatively easy fact, which is cards override rules.
Right.
A lot of people will look at rules interactions not necessarily in a vacuum, but they don't take that one little fact into account. For example, there was a lot of rules lawyering going on about the Archangel. So the standard thing about Archangels, they're a gargantuan, of course, and gargantuans cannot move outside of activation. The Archangel, on the other hand, has a thing on his card that says he gets that reform of, what is it, 3 inches?
3 inches, yeah.
Yeah. And what that means is card is overruling rules. And rules say one thing, card says another, always go with the card. So when you're looking at the base rules, always remember it should say underneath each of these, unless the card says different.
And the other thing to keep in mind, and I appreciate Brad McLeod bringing this up in the chat room, that bonding no longer equals 4 focus. Bonding is just extra stuff you get. So a bond, if a Jack, especially if a character Jack has a bond, or so, basically that will refer to a specific caster, and that will give certain abilities related to that. It's not like how it used to be. It's like, well, I'm Efiora, I'm taking me a sweet old adjudicator so I can get all the fire in the universe. It's a different deal like that. She has a spell that does that now, so that's all good. But you know, it's not the bond that gets you.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a really good thing to point out is that you need to, as our favorite judge Tim Mankey says, what does the card say? Read that again. Read the rest of your card. And as long as you remember to do those 3 things, you'll almost always come out with the right thing. So next thing up here is induction. So any of you convergence players, induction, you don't have a cortex, so no powering up, but you can now induct focus any number of times during your activation. This is amazing for convergence players. Not only does it let you move all 3 of your focus, but it allows you to do the most amazing line of charges known to man.
I hear what convergence needed was more focus efficiency.
Well, when Warjacks got better, we needed a way to be able to run them better, of course.
I'm so nonplussed with this particular change. I don't know. It's almost as bad as Monstrosities.
I don't think it's quite that bad, but it's really good. That ability to get more focus around the board, I think, is just a really good. I think it's a really good addition to Convergence because it keeps their weird fluffiness while still giving them kind of the same thing that Power Up does.
Fair enough.
So, crippled movement. One of the weird things that everybody had to remember was that when your legs go out, you go to 7 instead of 5.
Thank God I changed this.
Yeah, I am 100% behind you on this one. I think simplification, if it doesn't move, it goes to 5 now. That's it.
Let's be friggin' serious about this for just a second. If you're 5, you might as well be a 7, or a 7 might as well be a 5.
Yeah, it's not a huge. It's not.
It's
not going to save you. It's not. It's not going to make the difference.
Still double ones, folks. Still double ones.
Yeah.
But it's the not having to remember another thing that I love so much about this.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. You are correct.
Force field's got a little bit better.
Yep.
Retribution it's always nice to get a little buff, and it was just straight buff, D3 plus 1 instead of D3.
Yeah, now with the automatic single focus, you can, even if you didn't have great plans for that particular Jack, you can now, if nothing else, turn its force field back up a little bit.
Yeah, having it sort of be able to go into repair mode, I think is a great little ability there.
Very cool.
Next one, wreck markers are gone.
Suck it, Crix.
Yeah, no more running a Jack up onto the hill behind the forest.
I got your 6 defense right here.
And inert Warjacks have changed a bit. An inert Warjack is no longer considered stationary, though it follows most of the same rules as a stationary model. It no longer loses its special abilities, but cannot use abilities that could not be used while stationary, like countercharge or shield guard.
Yeah, this one's weird.
Well, what it stops happening is if you had, I know you can't actually do this, but if you had, say, the avatar on a junior and the junior died, I know you can't do that, but then the avatar could still use, I think it's the gaze, right? Menoth's gaze?
Literally the worst example you possibly could have given.
I know it is.
The better example from that same faction would have been one of the shield guard jacks.
There you go.
If it, the idea of this darn thing is that a devout on Tristan, let's say, is that it can still do even if he's dead, he can still do some kind of shield guard. To me, it's a little weird in that it kind of violates some of the fluff that, oh my God, there's this like feedback and the Jack's cortex is traumatized and it's listening to The Cure and it's all kinds of terrible things. And, but whatever, if they want to have shield guard, shit, I'll take shield guard if my stuff's down. That's fine.
Yep. Well, I think it's along this line of let's just make Jacks better, and it was another little way they could turn it up past 10.
Without question.
So another little thing, part of that is a Warcaster can reactivate that inert Warjack by spending a focus point while in base to base with it at any time during the Warcaster's activation. You no longer have to give up your combat action.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a much better rule.
Yeah, and Jack Marshals do still have to give up their combat action, but a Warjack now only forfeits its combat action the turn it was reactivated, not both its movement and its combat action.
Once again, doesn't leave you as a sitting duck.
Yeah, exactly. Lets you get out of the way. Mm-hmm. And the last one we'll go with is autonomous Warjacks. So you can use the same rules that you use for reactivating an inert Warjack for autonomous. Same base to base, spending a focus. Same thing with Jack Marshals. It's basically all the same stuff.
Right.
Again, another way of simplifying it. You don't have to worry about it. If it is not under control of a Warcaster, you can get it under control of a Warcaster.
Fact.
Cool.
So, I know for a fact that you have been beaten up by the next set of rules. So why don't you tell us about Monstrosities?
I can do that.
F these clowns.
All right, so Monstrosities now have Rage Fueled. They do not have Power Up, but they gain a focus point each time they take damage from an attack or continuous effect.
You notice that didn't say enemy.
Yeah, Maelstrom, what do some of those Cephalix models have for a rule?
They poke each other, right?
Yeah.
They do the pokey poke.
Yeah.
All those Cephalix models sitting in the back just poking each other.
Yeah. Having a good time. Right in the back.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I came across something interesting today. Abby 2 has a thing called what's it called? Anyway, she gets to take every time she hits something, she gets to take a focus off it and turn that focus into a fury. So you could theoretically just do infinite
unlimited attacks
on
against the monstrosity till it dies. Because you hit it, it gets a fury. You eat its fury,
and then
you hit it again, and you eat its fury. Oh,
I find nothing wrong with this.
This makes me happy, and in a way it shouldn't. I may have to go change.
I see nothing wrong with this, and it was exactly as I designed.
I can't wait to play Cephalix again.
All right, so.
All right, moving right along. Focus removal. Okay, unlike Warjacks, Monstrosities do not lose their focus points during the maintenance phase. They get to hang on to them.
So not only do you just poke them to get them more angry, you can just do it in the turn one.
Up and yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Hail Hydra.
Yeah. So, Warcaster destruction. When a Cephalix Warcaster is destroyed, its monstrosities become autonomous. So
game ends, but they're autonomous. Good for you.
Well, the times that it does not end, that can really matter. The times when it wouldn't end, obviously, multicaster games.
Yeah,
because you only lose a multicaster game when you run out of casters.
Yeah,
when you no longer have any Warcasters on the board.
Yeah.
The other time it could it could matter is there is a steamroller alternate rule that I have never ever actually seen in practice, which is game does not end when you run out of Warcasters.
Yeah.
And so that it only ends on tabling opponent or control or scenario.
Interesting.
Yep, it's one of the many things. If you want to have a really fun time, go to the back of the Steamroller scenarios, which we will be talking about the new organized play documents next week.
Yeah.
Go to the back of the Steamroller scenarios and look at all the weird and wonderful crap that nobody ever uses. Because it's all there and it's all fun, and it's really too bad it doesn't get used.
I'm pretty happy that one doesn't get used. How to make a 4-round tournament last 45 hours.
Oh,
Boom.
yes.
Cool.
All right, so on to Warlocks, Mr.
You want me to do that one too?
Well, yeah,
All right,
you've been
sure.
slacking.
Well,
Called a time penalty,
sick.
buddy.
I'm waking up here. Spirit Bond. So, after leeching, a Warlock can gain up to 1 Fury point for each medium-based or larger Warbeast, so not lessers, medium-based or large, in its battle group, only in its battle group, that has been destroyed or removed from play. It cannot exceed its Fury by doing this. If a Warbeast returns to play, its Warlock can no longer gain Fury from that Warlock's Spirit Bond with it.
I did such a good job on this rule set.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, John, when you're playing your trolls, is this leading you to do even more medium-based lights than you used to?
You know, I'll be honest with you. I haven't I haven't thought about trolls a whole lot ever since Mark III came out because I can't get past Rhett and accurate. But yeah, I mean, I think your point is well taken. You know, trolls especially are going to be looking for new ways to play their game, and now it's not like trolls needed a whole lot of reasons to field medium-based medium-based beasts, I should say. But I think this is something that is at least going to benefit that kind of play. You know, a lot of times when the way you beat a Warlock is by removing the beast so that you can get rid of transfers.
Yeah.
This is one way that I think that it helps bring, you know, like the power-up changes brought War Machine towards Hordes. I think this is one way that it helps bring Hordes some of the benefits of that War Machine used to have especially in the late game.
Yeah,
which is why I did it.
Yeah, I think it is such a good thing. That whole end portion of some games where you're chasing a Warlock around the table who is just bleeding fury was never fun. I would much rather have a stand-up fight, you know, than have it end that way.
It's less. I think this is less powerful and less impactful than the power-up mechanic was. But let's be brutally honest with ourselves. The Hordes mechanic was stronger as a mechanic than the War Machine focus mechanic was. I think that they're just a lot closer to each other now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. So Reaving. Warlock can reave Fury points from Warbeasts that get RFP'd, removed from play, in addition to destroyed Warbeasts.
Yeah, this is really nice just as a another way to keep the Warlocks alive a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, makes sense to me.
All right, I get to have some fun with Warbeasts.
You have some fun with Warbeasts.
This, of all the changes that I have seen come down in Mark III, as a PG, this might be the change that I love the most.
Yeah.
Because it takes a page and a half of rules and reduces it to
a paragraph.
Half a sentence.
Yeah, charge that shit that's close.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A friendly Warbeast activates, shakes everything it can, and charges directly to whoever's next to him. Good guy, bad guy, or otherwise. You get boosted to hit, and you obey all the charge rules.
Yeah.
So if you move more than 3 inches, you get the boosted damage. All the standard stuff, and it always uses its highest power weapon.
Yeah.
You know, that's it.
Yep. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Thank God. Because I made sure not to frenzy last time just because I had no idea how to deal with frenzies.
Don't feel like a lone ranger. You
Good.
you are not alone. It's like, dear God, have mercy. I need to make sure I can count right because otherwise I simply lose the ability to play the game.
Yeah, I'd lose 5 minutes on my clock a game at least. Just
Yeah,
counting
just-
how many Fury I had on the fucking table.
Yeah, and then another 5 minutes when you got it wrong,
Yeah,
trying to figure
damn
out how the hell to frenzy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another nice little thing. This just clears up 1,000 tiny problems. Animi are now spells.
Yes.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Get over it.
It's now a spell.
Yeah.
Anything that makes spells go away, make it go away.
Turns out no matter who's casting it, still a goddamn spell.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
It's amazing the way that works. It's awesome.
Nice.
So, John, why don't you tell us a little bit about what changed with units?
Units are no longer playable in the game. They have been eliminated from both War Machine and Hordes. You will play with beasts and jacks, and you will like it.
Would
That's
you
not
say they
real.
were unplayable trash?
They were. I would not say that. That is the domain of other podcasts. I would not want to do that. No. In all seriousness, some changes got made to the units. I think that these are all for the good, but we'll take them one at a time. Field promotion. A grunt that is promoted to a leader must forfeit its combat action that turn, but is not prevented from making attacks that turn that occur outside of its combat action. In other words, free strikes. Used to be, if this would happen, basically the dude was like a model that wasn't there other than to stand in the way. This now at least gives you the ability to take free strikes, which is always kind of a good thing. If a leader is destroyed while under an opponent's control or is removed from play, choose a new unit commander, but do not replace a grunt with the leader model. Relevant for the few units like the Stormblades and Crow's Cutthroats. In other words, if the Stormblades got that fancy gun, and that fancy gun goes out of play, is the way it works.
Same thing with the Banes, Mr. Double Axe, or any of those guys that they're just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Double X guy was part of a UA, though.
Oh, okay.
So he would have been...
He would have been gone anyway.
But like Jarrah Crow would go away. The fancy Stormblade guy. Doesn't the Storm Guard guy leader have something fancy about his
I think he does.
I don't know.
I think it's a 3-inch AoE or something.
Yeah. So there you go. That's a change. So if you want to get rid of that fancy gun, all you got to do is have a caster that has influence or something like that. So unit attachments. Unit attachments are now called command attachments because UA was too few words.
I guess so.
So weapon attachments. A unit can now have up to 3 weapon attachments. Weapon attachments are added individually rather than as a variable size group because someday that's going to be relevant in the game.
Well, aren't there... I want to say Winter Guard now can mix and match that didn't used to be able to.
Oh, they can add chain guns and
They can have chain gunners or the Rocketeers, I think.
I'm in favor of that. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm in favor of variability in units. So, as president of War Machine and Hordes, I declare my rule excellent. So, granted abilities only function while granting model is in formation.
No more hoarding them.
Yup. So no more hiding that dude around and all that kind of stuff. Formation. A friendly model can target a model in a unit with out-of-formation members with spells and abilities, but cannot target the out-of-formation members. Ladies and gentlemen, suck it, Kador Arknode. And the press forward order, which is a new name for the order that allows models in a unit to run or charge.
Yeah,
So.
I think this was purely a way for people not to say the words run charge order every single time.
I guess. I'm still calling it run charge order.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
Press forward, I mean...
I'm never going to remember that.
It's always that special thing that, like, Scorn had. So, I don't know. Hard for me to get my head around. I'm old, though. You know, I don't remember stuff so well.
Well, one of the things in spells that has changed, and basically really the only thing, as far as I can tell, spells sort of still act the same way, still in the same places on the card and everything, but now you have a duration
Right.
instead of upkeep.
I think makes sense.
Yeah, so you can tell whether it's a turn or a round thing. So you don't have to worry whether did that say last for a turn or last for a round. You can just glance down, see what its duration is, or whether it's an upkeep.
You know, it's a continuing story on cards, making them more how should I say, information rich on the front side of the card. So
Yeah, I think they are really trying to make it so that you can play the game with all of your cards just sitting on the table without having to pick up every single one.
yes, sir.
I think this we should call this the John Damaris rule, just so that so that he properly gets credit.
Yeah.
No comment. Terrain. Let's talk about terrain.
Moving right along.
Move on as quickly as possible. All right, terrain. I am very, very pleased with terrain.
Terrain is looking good in Mark III.
Terrain makes me happy. Not only have we seen in the new Steamroller, which we'll talk about more at length next week, that we're getting more terrain on tournament tables, but we now have a bunch of fun new terrain types.
Yep.
Oh, this is super cool.
There are, one of the neat little things is if you actually read the terrain section, and I would encourage everybody, now that the rule books are free, go get the rule book. Like, I understand that like 80% of people didn't own a rule book because, well, cards.
Yeah.
So you didn't need to. But now that it's free, go out, give it a quick read.
Go get it.
Yeah, it's free and it's great to have. One of the neat things they've added in there are guidelines for how to build custom terrain.
Ooh, I did not see that.
So you can actually generate rules that are in keeping with all the other rules for your specific piece of terrain. So along with the custom terrain, there's two new basic official terrain types.
Yeah.
There's dense fog, which is like a cloud effect that you would normally get, but it can just disappear at any time during the game.
I love that. I love that rule.
I think it is the most fun type of terrain.
Yes.
Super fun.
And rubble, which is what you get when you knock over a house or something. It's rough terrain that provides cover to models that are completely within it.
Completely.
Let's hear it for things that are completely within other things.
Yes. Here.
So, speaking of things completely within other things, one
Jesus.
of the...
Did this become Pornhub all of a sudden? What happened here?
Not quite yet, but let me give you just the tip about this.
Oh my God. Shouldn't just do that. Hey, Ron. I'm thinking of that one.
Anytime you have something like cover or concealment, anything that you're getting from a piece of terrain, you have to be completely within. So forests, hills, they only grant their effects if you're completely inside them. The only time that is not true is for rough terrain. Anything that slows you down, you are slowed down as soon as you hit that.
Right.
So this is trying to equal out the benefits with the negatives.
Yep.
So for example, somebody's hiding behind a house.
Yep.
They're pretty much out there, but just the tip of the corner of their base is hidden from your line of sight.
That's a little bit different. That's not a within effect. That's a close to effect.
Okay.
So
because that's still obnoxious as hell.
The standard thing is when there is terrain intervening between an attacker and a target, whether a target's within 1 to the terrain, now separate requirements for checking whether the target gets concealment covered from the terrain. So what that mouthful of words means is it used to be on the line that you were checking.
Yeah.
You had to be within 1 inch of the building. Now you just have to be within 1 inch of the building somewhere.
Yeah.
And be able to draw a line that blocked the terrain.
Okay.
That sounds like a really pedantic thing.
Yes.
But I have seen it come up in tournaments a bunch of times.
Okay.
Because a weirdness that most people don't know is that when you're a PG or when you're a judge, you see the worst parts of this game over and over and over again compared to the people at the tournament. So at the tournament, you might run into a weirdness, say one of your 4 games. But there is, say, 20 people at the tournament, and there are 4 games. Right? So suddenly I'm seeing 80 weird cases every tournament. Right?
Yeah.
So I have seen that come up over and over again. Basically, for concealment and cover, it's still basically the same. You got to be within an inch of the terrain. Some part of your base has to be blocked from some part of their base, and you're all set. Now, we've talked about stuff being added, but there are 2 things that went away. Structures are effectually gone, which I'm finding very weird, and I haven't yet figured out where structures are coming back in, because they are, and deep water. Thank goodness deep water is gone.
Thank God.
So, classic example of a structure is Pillars of Salt.
Yeah.
So, what it gets away from is if you have less than POW 14 gun, you used to not be able to address that other than walk up and tap it. It gives. I think it's a really good change. I think what structures are turning into, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, are armor 20 things. With like a wound or however many wounds, and I'm down with that.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a really great change. There are a few models that reference structures on their cards. We'll have to see whether those get errated or whether structures come back in some other form. But they are not. But they are not a piece of terrain. So getting on to the new models, there are a couple of different types. The first one is these hazards. So hazards encompass 2 of these neat new types. One, a couple of the different types of hazards they mention here is an acid bath. Acid baths are a pond that you declare as an acid bath. So anything in it gets the corrosion effect. And the other really neat one is burning earth.
Yeah.
So you get a like burning trees or whatever that go out on a 1 or a 2.
So how do you check that? Like, at what point do you?
At what point do you check? At the beginning, during your control phase, I believe.
Okay.
That's not 100%. That's just off the top of my head.
Like with the dense fog, like when you check to see.
Yeah, it's the same time. It's the same thing at the beginning of each turn, not each round.
Yeah.
You'll roll for each of the different types of terrain.
Right.
Now, if someone actually has a copy of the rules in front of them, I'm working from my.
I do.
From my
I'm
notes.
up right now.
Okay, John
he's
can check that for us. I will mention in the same breath the other one, because we already talked about it a little bit, which is dense fog. And dense fog also has the same rule, where instead of going out, it actually disappears off the
off the table.
Off the table. Right. It just evaporates.
And it never comes back.
Yeah. And
gone.
What that I find so amazing is that round 1 and 2 you could advance up behind this cover, and then it just disappears.
So let's talk a little bit about it, because acid bath and burning earth have work differently. Acid bath is just there. It is going to be an acid bath throughout the whole game. You get knocked down in it or across into it, you've got corrosion. You're going to be doing the typical 1-2, it goes out kind of a thing. Burning earth is different. Burning earth starts sounding a lot like acid bath in that it's a thing. You cross into it, you get continuous fire and all that kind of stuff. But it can go out at any time. At the end of each player's turn, starting with the end of the second player's first turn, you roll a d6. And on a 1 or 2, the flames go out. So literally, it could just go out before anybody gets to it, depending upon how things are. And the area is, no longer considered to be on fire. If the Burning Earth feature was represented by a 3-inch AoE template, that template is removed from the table. So it just basically becomes a little patch of ash. And there you go.
The reason that they specify is if it was represented by the AoE template is because you can also designate terrain features as burning.
Right.
So you could say that this is a burning forest. So it doesn't go away like the other one would. It just no longer has that burning effect.
Nice.
Right.
Cool.
There you go.
That's cool.
And by the way, that is brought to you by the power of War Room 2. Being able to quickly search and it literally brings up the rule book is such an improvement over the... And all they had to do was discover what a searchable PDF was.
One of the biggest props I will give for the keynote was the bravest man in War Machine, as far as I'm concerned.
Lane.
The Lane going on stage and sending his product live on stage.
It was also the longest part of the keynote.
It really was.
True.
The most exciting part of the keynote as well.
It was the most exciting part of the keynote. All right, so
Still salty about that.
We only mocked the keynote because it was that bad.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, okay. So one last little thing. Elevation and melee is now a thing. You got to measure between their volumes. Going into volumes is not something we have the time or fortitude for. No. Model volume we might as well bring up as a topic some other time, because it's not that complex to work with, but it is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So just know about that. Know that that can happen.
In an edition that does nothing but simplify, why in the bloody hell did they do that?
Yeah, that's the one thing that I just don't...
Yeah.
Why would you add that in there?
My assumption is somewhere there is a corner case thing that is absolutely broken by this.
Yeah.
Like that's my assumption. If there is a rule that weird in a set of rules this streamlined, it tells me that there is something somewhere that is just broke.
Well, that's terrible game design. Okay, so there you go.
Yeah. Well, we had to have it somewhere.
There you go. Sure.
And if that's the place it is, I feel I can ignore that bit.
Mark Report needed a reason to happen someday. There you go. Fix melee up at home.
As one last little thing about terrain obstructions, you can now designate them walkable. So you can say you can go on to this and you can use the obstruction rules. Things like houses.
Yeah.
If you're using... For God's sake, please stop using it. But if you're using that old GW terrain with the different layers inside it, if you can't stop using it, for some reason it's glued to a table that you need to use, you can now use the obstruction rules to actually make sure they're part of the game.
Cool.
But that's it. We have made it through the changes.
Look at that. We did it under the death clock.
Yeah, I know it's strange. For us, we do
really
try and stick to the death clock, but
doesn't often work.
Work that way. But so everybody, I'm going to thank everybody for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Next week the plan is to take a look at organized play documents and go through some of those. We also have some neat stuff coming up. We in the next couple of weeks, we're hoping to have on the gentleman who made that beautiful clear plexiglass case that was given away with the troll models at Lock and Load. Did you get a chance to see that, John?
I did. The guy that actually got that was Dallas, a buddy of mine from back in the days when I lived in Logan, Utah. It's really incredible the way that thing works. Being able to slide your bases in there and basically turn the damn thing upside down and not have your stuff crash. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's an amazing sort of new way of transporting and showing off your models. That's one of the things I love about it. Yeah. You can put that clear plastic case down and you can see all the models, and it's sexy.
It is very sexy.
So we're hoping to get him on soon because he's going to launch a Kickstarter, and we want to be able to let people know about that. Yeah, exactly. We're also hoping to actually, if we're lucky, we're going to get somebody from Tinker House onto the cast
the plan.
To talk about the wonder that is the new War Room.
Yep.
Also, I just want to let people know that as a companion piece to what Menoth John did with the beta of War Room 2, I'm going to be producing a set of small videos that will give you a quick tutorial on War Room 2. So if you're just jumping into this, you used War Room 1 up until a couple of weeks ago, and you're like, there's a
all this
lot more
new crap?
buttons on here than there was the last time
Yeah.
I looked at this. I'm going to be doing a set of
That's good
3 or
because
4.
there's features in there that are fairly hidden. Like
Yeah.
they're not just.
My favorite
Out in the
hidden
open.
feature
Yeah.
is the reset army feature.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
If you don't know what's hiding in there,
Yeah.
go when you're playing a game.
Yeah.
Go up and hit that little, what we call in the industry, a hamburger. The
Yeah.
3 lines up at the top. Tap that. You can reset your whole army.
Yeah.
So if you're at the game shop, you just stomped a noob, shall
Yeah.
we say, and he has hung his head in shame and wandered away with his models, and
Yeah.
someone else has taken his place.
Yeah.
You can just tap reset army, drag everything back to the deployment line, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Wow, that's super slick. I just did that on a list that I had used before. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Isn't that
it's
wonderful?
nice.
I love it. So I'm going to be doing a quick set of videos about that, and that should be up in the next sort of week. I want to throw it over to Menoth John. It is time to pimp your stuff.
All right. Well, in case all of this Mark III has got you completely overwhelmed, I highly recommend the Sunday night extravaganza that is the Painting with Menoth John show, available to you here at the Moose Machine Network, as well as over at twitch.tv/Menoth John. We're going to be talking Guild Ball because nothing says Mark III like talking about Guild Ball. We're going to be having Sherwin from Steamforged. He is their lore master. Think of it as having CCAT on without anything to say about the Iron Kingdoms. He's also from the KR Multicase. And if you are not protecting your miniatures with KR Multicase, you have not experienced the love of the Butterfoam. And the Butterfoam simply makes your models go, ah. So that'll be at 6 o'clock Central Time. That is not our normal time. Usually we're at 6:30, but we do not believe in competing with Daenerys Targaryen's boobs. And those come on at 8 o'clock. So we have to be at 6 o'clock Central Time for the pre-ramble. And then we have all the shenanigans taking place after that. So I would encourage each and every one of you to stay right here on the Moose Machine Network and experience that Sunday night.
All right, so just a couple last things. I want to shout out, normally Troll Blood Scrum
Yes.
is on later tonight. I'm not sure if they're on this week, but if they are, please go ahead and watch them. They are a great group of guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, I would like to welcome Beer Machine to the Moose Machine Network as a streaming partner.
Yeah.
They're now going to be doing Monday nights.
That's awesome.
So Rich and the boys will be cracking some beers and playing some games.
That's our pub night.
I know. So we need to have it streaming up at the pub. See, that's the way it goes.
That's a thing.
All right, and for all of you in the Ottawa area, one thing I want to say is we have a little bit of stuff coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
On the midnight of the 29th,
Yes.
make sure that you have your battle box midnight
So is
of the
that
28th.
Tuesday?
It is
Tuesday.
12:01 Wednesday morning.
Right, yeah.
Or just after midnight on Tuesday.
Tuesday going into Wednesday.
Yeah, on the 29th, which is release day, so
Yes.
stop confusing people.
Yeah.
So on release day at midnight, we have a battle box tournament.
We do.
So you will be handed your battle box at midnight. We will be assembling for the first hour, and then we
Yeah.
have a battle box tournament that basically runs till the sun comes up.
Yeah.
After that, Canada Day weekend, release weekend, and I think the Americans are doing something on Monday too. There is a there is a release event at almost every store in Ottawa,
yeah.
and if it wasn't at your store on the first weekend, it will be on the second weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have the first, second, third, fourth. We will have release events.
So there's
and
no
then
excuses,
on the 9th and
really.
10th. So
No excuses.
what I always recommend is
Yeah.
go to the very first one
Yeah.
and then check out the pricing,
Right.
and then go back and shave your list down and come out full guns at your favorite game store. So with all that said,
Also, we should mention our sponsors.
we probably should. As Will likes to say, the people who keep the lights turned
That's
on.
right. The people who keep the
The Wizard's Tower,
Yes.
which I may have just mentioned about that battle box tournament.
Yes, yeah. That's right.
They are our sponsor here. We also are really happy to be part of the Muse Network. They help us get this podcast out to all of you lovely people who are listening to it.
Yep.
And so I think it is time for the death clock to go down.
Good night.
Dice down! Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis Network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.